Look at that beautiful smoke ring and see how easy it is to just pull it apart like that. Now, let's get a bite and we're gonna take it from the bark end. That is awesome. That was a great looking piece of meat. So let's go ahead and see how we got there. So it's just barely sunrise and I had to get a light out because it was a little overcast today. And I have loaded my smoker ahead of time before sunrise. We'll go ahead and show you what we got here. I have a Weber Smoky Mountain with the addition of the Inkbird smoke controller. Now I was able to get this thing working to what I think is perfectly. So we're gonna go ahead and get this started and then I'll talk about that in a minute. So first of all, I have my grate in here and I have my thermometer and my temperature sensor and they're all connected. And then I'm gonna go ahead and open that up. And then what I have right here is a charcoal chimney that I started about 15 minutes ago and it's going really good. I'm gonna put it up by the close-up cam and see if you can see it at all because it is just so dark out here that I don't know what you'll be able to get. But anyway, it's going really good and it could use maybe 2 more minutes, but we're gonna go ahead and set it in there. Now I've done a couple of practice cooks in between the pork shoulder that I did. And again, that's small meat. I didn't do anything big, just like a piece of chuck steak or chuck roast. And then I've noticed a couple of things. So one thing that I'm doing is I put the hole in the middle for the lighting charcoal, but then I leave a little bit of a gap here because I want that air to be able to blow directly on these freshly lit charcoals. And I think that might actually help them control the temperature a little bit better. Now, I did not use the Skyflame basket today because I needed more than 8 hours worth of smoke time. So I went with the regular basket and I'm just gonna remember that we need to open all of the vents when we're done if we wanna burn off all the charcoal. But if we wanna recycle any of the leftover charcoals, we close it all down and it'll all go out. Now I positioned these, made sure they're where I want them. And if you want to get these stoked up a little bit, you can actually blow on them right here. But I think that the Inkbird controller does a good job of that without any additional assistance. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that back on and get it started as soon as possible. So it looks like we're in a good position here. And then I'll go ahead and plug that in. And I'm gonna give it a minute to start up, so we'll be right back. So I went ahead and turned my phone on, and the first thing that I noticed is that we have the Wi-Fi indicator is marked right there instead of the Bluetooth indicator. That means that my change in my system was successful. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pop that screenshot right up there and show you where we're at. Let me take that. We're at 92 degrees currently and the target of 225. If you look at the graph, you can see the yellow line, which is the temperature inside the smoker, is moving right up just as planned. And the blue line is flat, which means that the fan is running at 100% speed. As we get closer to our target temperature, probably in the 180 to 190 range, the fan will actually start to ramp down and then it will start to tune itself so that way it can hold the 225 temperature perfectly. It will get just under 225 and it'll bump up right over it and then it'll totally shut down and it'll start again and keep running that cycle until it figures out where it needs to be. In the last couple of cooks that I've done, it has come up to about 18%, maybe even just a little less, to hold that really consistent temperature. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and even though we're not up to temperature, I'm gonna load this smoker because I need to get everything going so that way I can go to work for a couple of hours and I'll come right back. So let me go ahead and grab that. I'll be right back here. So you know me, I have my grill mat right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that on. Today, I'm gonna add olive oil, and just because I want it to stick a little bit less. So I'm gonna do this, and we're just gonna spray this. This is the same olive oil bottle I use to season the meat. And then just like that, I'll let that set up for a minute. We're gonna give this another minute or two. So while we're doing that, I want you to go check out the video here of me seasoning that brisket about 20 minutes ago. So we're in the kitchen here, and what I have is technically a brisket point. My local butcher shop will cut the brisket, and I don't know exactly what they do with the flats. Sometimes they'll have them for sale, but frequently they'll have these trimmed points. Now, they trim them really well, so there's not a lot of fat cap left. I'm assuming that they want that too, probably for, you know, their meat operation, like making burger and stuff like that. So this one right here is about 5.5 pounds, and I'm gonna go ahead and show it to you really quick. There's a little bit of fat right in there, and then you can see a lot of that fat is completely trimmed off. I'm gonna rinse it really quick, and I'll be right back. So after I'm done rinsing it, I like to pat it dry a little bit. And it doesn't, I'm not like trying to get it completely dry. I just want it so there's no puddles of water or anything. I want to be able to just work with it. And it looks pretty good. Since I'm not cutting through the meat, I'm using the cookie sheet or baking tray today. I prefer those. And I'm just gonna try to take off a little bit of these chunks of fat. This one right here especially is very hard and won't really eat well. So if I can get a little bit of that out, that would be nice. And this is my Victorinox curved boning knife. I like using that to get in here. And once I get done with all these fat pieces, I'm going to go ahead and render them down. I'll just throw them either in a crock pot or in a small pan and leave them on the stove for a couple of hours. So you can see here, I just took off the fat that was on the surface, the stuff that was really easy to get to. I really don't want to separate it if I don't have to. And then on the back side, normally I would leave a nice layer on here, but because it's already scalped here and here, I'm going to go ahead and just trim it evenly. A nice thing about that is there won't be any parts of this that you won't want to eat. A lot of times, if you get a large quantity of fat on there, you might not want to eat that piece. So I'm just going to work to get rid of as much of this as I can, and I'll be right back. So here we are with the trimmed piece, and again, I would consider this scalped. So normally we would not want to come down to this level, but since it was already pre-trimmed, we went ahead and went with it. Now today, I'm actually going to use 3 different seasonings, and what I have here is my favorite, which is Cosmos Cow Cover. And then I have their double pepper coarse blend, and then I have my own blend, which is 3211. What I like about using my own blend is I can completely control the salt level, and I'm very salt sensitive, so if you're not, don't worry about it, just use a base one. If you had to choose from one thing, I would use this and a little bit of black pepper. I prefer a coarse ground on a meat like beef, but you can use any black pepper that you like. I don't like one of those 16 gauge or something like that. That's just not my thing. They're great and they're really coarse, so you can really get a texture on it, like it adds to the bark, but it's not, for me, it's not necessary, but you do what works best for you. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a light cover with this one first. And then I'm going to use the coarse then I'll use some of mine. I always have to make sure I get a good shake on this. Settles pretty easily. Now, after I put all that on, I'm going to use some olive oil as a binder. I don't know if you've seen these little spray bottles, but they are really nice. And it's got a little pump right here. I just put in extra virgin olive oil, organic, that I buy from the store, and then I can transfer it to this. That's going to act like a binder there. And then we can add just a little bit more. I'm going to repeat this process, so I'm going to flip it over, do the other side, and then I'll do the edges, and I'll get it really well covered, and then if I can get more seasoning on, I will. But we're going to go ahead and just move on from that process and go outside, and that's where you'll see me next with the finished seasoned brisket. So I'll see you out there. So here's that brisket that I seasoned up, and I'm sure the close-up cam still doesn't have enough light to work, but I'll hold it up anyway, and maybe we'll just go like this. And I went ahead and got all the sides done, let it tack up a little bit. If you leave it sit on the counter for about 10 minutes, some of the moisture will come to the surface because of the salt, and then you'll be able to add more seasoning. I did add a light layer of pepper, like I mentioned earlier, that I wanted a little bit of coarse pepper on there just to complete that bark. It's not like 16 gauge though. Let's go ahead and open this up now, and that grill mat has had a chance to heat up just a little bit. Just for your benefit, I'm gonna put the point facing this side so you can kind of get a look at it here. Want to make sure that it's kind of as close to the middle as we can get it. There we go, and give that grill temperature thermometer a little bit of space. Something I wanted to mention is that it has the open door alarm, and you might disable that for this point. I'm going to go ahead and insert this because I'll be away, but I want to be able to see how it's going. So I'm going to try to get it in the thickest spot right in the middle, so that way I can monitor that from outside of the house. So go ahead and put that lid on as soon as possible. And just to mention, I'm using my normal pencil trick. I put a pencil in here, I close the smoker vent, and then I slightly close it a little bit more. And now I'm going to go ahead and close this front vent. I like to initially light it with that front vent on, but by closing that vent and having this one down to this minimum level, the smoke controller will take full control of it because all of the air input will be there and all of the air output will be right here. So let's spend a second and talk about the smoke controller. I was able to get the smoke controller to go online through the Wi-Fi, and it was kind of an issue for me, and it's probably just a me issue, but I had to change my password on my Wi-Fi. And the reason is that my password had letters and numbers, and I couldn't figure out how to enter my password. I tried the WPS button and to do an auto sync, and it worked in the house, but when I came outside and I think I switched to a different router on my mesh network, it wouldn't work. So what I did was I went in and I changed my password on my Wi-Fi to something that was all lowercase letters, and then I just went ahead and resynced it. So I deleted the device and then logged it back in with the new password, and it logged right in and there was no issues. It just showed up perfectly fine. So if you're having problems connecting, I recommend that you go ahead and either create a guest network, or you can use your existing network and just change it to a random set of words in all lowercase in my situation. So that worked out, and it's connected, and I'm seeing it from everywhere. Anywhere where I have Wi-Fi or cell connection, I can see this device. I have tested it a couple of times, and I'm very happy with how that solution worked. So we're gonna go ahead and let this go. I'm gonna watch it for another 15 minutes before I have to go to work, but you're not gonna have to sit through that stuff. I'll see you back here in a couple of hours, and we'll be checking on it. So I'm thinking 2.5, maybe 3 hours for me, but just 1 second for you. So we have gone along quite some time, and the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and pop the current screenshot from my phone, and I just took that right before I started the camera. I'm showing 238 as a current internal temperature at the grill surface, and the fan speed is showing 0 right now. And you can see that by looking at the yellow line on the graph is up here, and the blue line is all the way down on the bottom. Now, if you look at that pattern, you'll see that it's been going up and down pretty consistently, and it's matching. The one thing that I did on accident is I accidentally closed out the app and had to log back into it. So I lost the original part of the graph, but there is some screenshots that I have from the very beginning, and you can see some of those shots have some pretty, aggressive bumps in them. But this here has zoomed the graph in to 188 degrees by 262 degrees. So it's just a range, and the red dotted line is the target temperature. So it's holding it really good. It looks kind of brutal, but that's only because it's a zoom in. If it wasn't zoomed in, it wouldn't look as bad. And yeah, it's going up and down by over 20 degrees, but that's really pretty reasonable for most smokers, especially one that doesn't normally have a motor or any kind of blower that goes with it. That's pretty consistent. So I've already taken the lid off and taken a look at it, and we're gonna need to do a little bit of maintenance here. Let me set my phone down. I'm gonna go ahead and first, I'm gonna take a temperature reading with my Lightning thermometer. Set that down. We wanna be quick. Get across there, right into the middle. And it's showing 143. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back on. And I'm gonna go ahead, and the grill lid alarm came on. That was quick. Takes a minute or two for it to go off once it detects that the grill lid is back on. And then right here, you'll see that it's 143. So we'll go ahead and check out this screenshot that I just took, and what we have here is 144 internal, and I took the screenshot after I took the thermometer reading, so it could be climbing up pretty naturally. And you'll see that the target temperature is set at 192, which is what I did my custom setting at. That's not a natural setting. There might be one in there, but I'm still new with this app, so I just went ahead and put in what my target is. I want to be slightly over that to be real comfortable, but I can cook right up to that point, and then I can let it keep going just a little longer to get where I want to be. I'm not sure if the PID programming is actually going to slow down the temperature once we reach that, but I wouldn't be surprised if Inkbird has accounted for that and has a nice little feature to do something like that. So we'll find out, because I haven't cooked to that final temperature yet on any of my tests. So next thing I want to do is I'm going to put this away, and we're going to go ahead and spray down the surface because it looks a touch dry to me. So I went ahead and brought out the olive oil sprayer, and these things are so cool. What I really like is not only does it spray, but you can also pour if you want, just by flipping that switch. You want to be kind of soft on the switch. These containers and the things, they're on the less durable side, shall we say, budget friendly. So you want to be easy with it. I'm going to go ahead and open the lid, and of course it's going to detect that again, and the beeper might go off. So we'll set that down. I'm going to take a look at the bottom here. Bottom looks really good. I think I'm just gonna leave the bottom alone for now. I mean, a little bit on the side, a little bit on this side. So most of that olive oil will actually run off of the side, but it'll keep it moist without adding water to it. And that's really what I like. And the olive oil flavor is so mild that it'll just kind of blend in with the seasoning and make the bark even more complex. And you won't even notice that it was olive oil. It'll just keep it where we want it so the surface doesn't dry out too fast. And when we're done, we'll get that still nice crispy bark, but it won't be hard. So let's go ahead and take our next break. I gotta tell you that I am just loving this automatic fan. The one thing I'm gonna do before we do that break is I'm gonna throw in a couple chunks of wood. This is a little larger than I want, but this is the smallest one I had in the box, and I need to get the actual axe out to chop this. I'm gonna go ahead and set that right on top of the charcoals, and I'll set this smaller one in there too. It'll probably catch on a little bit. Then hopefully we hit this thing with a nice blast of smoke. Now it has been smoking decently, you know, just a little bit here and there, but I want to punch that smoke level up just a little bit. You could also throw a handful of wood chips in there. Don't be scared just to put that in, and they'll get smoldering right along. They might catch on fire too, so be ready for a temperature spike if you do something like that. Now, we are going along great, and we're just gonna go ahead and see how it goes. We should be getting into the temperature range pretty soon where we might see a stall, but on this size of a brisket, it's possible that we probably won't. Now again, this isn't a whole brisket, it's just a brisket point and just a small piece of the flat that's attached underneath, but the size does not make the whole difference because what we really need is that connective tissue to break down, and that takes some time. So let me say that right now we're right around 4 hours of cook time, and what we're looking for is another 8 hours of cook time to get all that connective tissue to break down. So let's go ahead and run it for another, say, I'm gonna go for 4 hours before our next filming, but I'll let you know when we come back. So we'll be right back for you in 1 second. All right, so I just went ahead and took a screenshot, and it has been another 4 hours since we last talked. And we're showing a current internal temperature of 204, and the target temperature is 225. It is starting to have a little bit of trouble keeping that temperature. The fan speed is 58, but it looks like it's ramping up a little bit. I think we're just running a little low on charcoal. So after I turn off the camera, I will go ahead and add a little bit more. But first thing I want to do is I want to get to the brisket here. So I'll take off the lid really quick, and hopefully the alarm doesn't go off. And you can see it's got some really nice color, and the bark has some solid texture. Nothing's rubbing off. So that is perfect. We're going to go ahead and we're actually going to wrap the brisket. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull this out, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set that in there, and I'm going to set it in kind of like this. And then we're just going to take it, fold it over once, fold the ends in, fold it over again, fold those ends in, and it's going to be nice and tight. And what I'll do is we'll go ahead and put this back on there, but before we do that, I'm going to remove this. And the reason is I don't want it to stick to the grill mat. We'll go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to take this, put it right in there. Make sure that the hole is nice and small. Then we'll put the lid back on there. So now the fan is ramped up to 100% because we had the lid off. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the temperature to 275, and I'm going to add more charcoal. You don't need to watch me do that, but what I will do is I'll pop a screenshot of the new temperature that I'm going to take as soon as I'm done adding the charcoal. So you see that right here, and the new target is 275, and then we'll go ahead and roll like that. We have 4 hours to be done with this, and I just don't know if we're gonna make it. It's gonna be really close. Brisket takes time. So I'll see you in a couple more seconds, and I'll let you know how long that's been for me. So I had originally set the temperature alarm for 192 degrees, and when that happened, I came out and I felt the brisket, and I felt like it was still just a touch too firm. So what I did was I went ahead and reset it again for 197. And then it made that 197, and now it feels just a little bit better. That just the fibers or the connective tissue just really started to let go at that point. But it needs to rest. And with the brisket, unless there's just something going on, like if it's going to be nightfall or it's going to pour down rain, I'm going to give it that time to rest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the table. I'm going to set the metal table right here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the brisket and set it right there. So it's been about 40 minutes, which is a few minutes longer than the minimum resting time, but that's okay, because if you keep these things wrapped nice and tight, you can probably rest them for up to 3 or 4 hours. I have thrown them in a towel in a cooler for about that amount of time before when I was having parties, and they come out just great. Now, I brought the temperature way up and burned off a lot of the fats that's in there, so it's still smoking a little bit, and you want to be careful with that because it can start a fire. So I'm going to go ahead and set this on the cutting board, and just to keep the mess contained, I put the cutting board in a cookie sheet, and we're going to go ahead and open that up, and there is a lot of juice in here, and I got to be honest, I don't really want to lose any of this juice. Look at that. We'll try to get all that in the cutting board so that way we can keep it for later. Wow, that looks good. Now, if you want to get the bark hard, you could put it back on the smoker or even throw it in the propane grill, and then you can harden that bark back up. But I kind of like mine a little softer. Makes it a little bit easier to cut. There's the flat end right there. And here's the point end. Boy, that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and cut kind of just a little bit to the flat end, but mostly towards the middle. I want to get a good cut so you can get a good look in there. You saw how smooth that went through. Boy, that looks good. I'm going to hold this up so that way you can see it. Wow. So that's mostly the flat end there. I'm going to take another slice right here. Look at that. Go ahead and cut that in half. And we will try this part. This is part of the point here. I'm going to go ahead and give it a bite. That's tasty. I really love the beefy flavor. Brisket and chuck just have the best beefy flavor, and that's one of the things I really like about it. And you can see here, look how easy it is to pull apart. It's just soft enough, but it's not falling apart. Some people like their meat a little bit more done, and if you do, that's okay. I recommend cooking it a couple degrees higher and letting it rest a little longer, but this is exactly the way I like mine. So I think that we have proved that the Inkbird smoke controller works great on the Weber Smoky Mountain. Now, of course, I have plans to try some other smokers and modify them and see how well they work. But this is definitely putting that Inkbird to the test, and it did well. I still have a little bit of a learning curve to learn how to use the app. I just kind of muddled through it, and I'll be honest, I reset it a couple of times on accident. At one point, I think I reset it and accidentally turned off the fan, and I didn't notice for like 10 minutes. But it's okay, because all I had to do was click the button and turn the fan back on. So easy to use, and if you had a Kamado or an Acorn or something like that, this would just be an invaluable tool. So check that thing out. If you're not interested in buying it, at least click the link. It helps the channel out. I really appreciate that. Below, you'll find affiliate links for everything I use on the channel, which includes things like the Victorinox slicing knife and the Weber Smoky Mountain and other things that you really need if you're gonna have successful barbecue. If you use those links, it will help the channel, but it won't cost you anything extra. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate you watching. Have a great day.